Hey everyone, and welcome back. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel. We're diving deep today into a case that's really baffled investigators for years, the disappearance of Brian Shaffer.
A truly perplexing case.
Yeah, and especially because this isn't, like some, disappearance from the, 1800s or early 1900s. This happened in 2006.
Yeah, a time when surveillance technology was becoming more and more common, yet we still have this mystery.
It's like a detective novel, right? Like you think you've got all the pieces, but then something just doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's set the scene, all right? It's March 31st, 2006, the start of spring break. Brian Shaffer, a young med student, he's about to go on vacation with his girlfriend to Miami. But first, he decides to meet up with some friends for drinks.
A pretty standard start to a spring break, right?
Totally normal, right? Like nothing seems out of the ordinary.
Right. He starts the evening at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. He's with his friend Clint. Then later, they meet up with another friend, Meredith, and they go bar hopping. Typical Friday night for college students.
Yeah, just a casual night out with friends.
Mm-hmm.
But around 1:50 a.m., they end up back at the Ugly Tuna. And this is where things get really strange.
This is where the mystery starts to unfold.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So security cameras catch Brian talking to two women outside the bar. And then at 1:57 a.m., he goes back inside. And that's it. He's never seen again.
And what makes it even more strange is that the Ugly Tuna, it only had one public exit. And guess what? It was monitored by security cameras.
So everyone who left that night should be on camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every single patron who left is accounted for on the footage, except for Brian.
Okay, so wait. Hold on. How is that even possible? Did he, teleport out of there or something? Was there some secret exit we don't know about?
Well, there was a back exit that employees used, but it led out to a construction site.
A construction site. Okay, but wouldn't someone have seen him? I mean, wouldn't a construction site be, kind of dangerous to navigate in the dark? You'd think they would have found something, right?
You would think so, wouldn't you? The police, they did extensive searches and they found nothing. And get this, there was no activity on Brian's phone, credit cards, or bank accounts after he went back into the bar.
So it's like he vanished into thin air.
Yeah, it really is as if Brian just ceased to exist from that point on. His digital footprint just disappeared completely.
So if he didn't just walk out and there's no evidence of foul play inside the bar, what other explanations are there? What are we missing here?
Well, there are a few theories that have been put forward over the years, and one of them, however unlikely it might seem, is that Brian staged his own disappearance.
Wait, are we saying that he just decided to walk away from his entire life? Like on the eve of a vacation with his girlfriend?
It's a bizarre thought, I know. But investigators did consider this possibility. Remember, Brian was dealing with the recent loss of his mother. Maybe he was just overwhelmed with grief and wanted a fresh start. The pre-planned Miami trip could have been part of a plan to vanish without raising immediate suspicion.
But wouldn't he have contacted someone? Like his girlfriend, his father, anyone? Even a quick message to say he's okay.
You'd think so, right? And that's one of the biggest problems with this theory. It's been 18 years, and there hasn't been a single credible sighting of Brian. No financial activity, no communication, nothing. To just disappear so completely, especially in this day and age, it's almost impossible.
Okay, so let's say we set aside this staged disappearance theory. What about foul play? Could something have happened to him inside the bar?
That's definitely another possibility that investigators looked into. The layout of the bar did provide opportunities for someone to potentially lure Brian into the back alley without being seen. But again, lack of evidence is a major issue. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no indication of any altercation.
What about Clint, his friend who was with him that night? Didn't he become a person of interest?
There was definitely some suspicion surrounding Clint. He refused to take a polygraph test and stopped cooperating with the police. That raised a lot of eyebrows, naturally.
It does make you wonder what he might know. But without concrete evidence, I guess it's impossible to say for sure.
Right, we have to be careful about separating speculation from facts. While Clint's behavior might seem suspicious, there's nothing directly linking him to Brian's disappearance.
So we've got a potential staged disappearance, the possibility of foul play, and yet neither theory really seems to explain everything. What other pieces of the puzzle are we missing?
Well, remember that construction site behind the bar? One theory is that Brian might have wandered out that back exit, maybe disoriented after a night of drinking, and had some kind of accident.
But if that's what happened, wouldn't they have found something during the searches? Even a big construction site, you wouldn't think it would be big enough to just completely swallow someone whole.
It does seem unlikely. But you have to consider the conditions. It was nighttime, the site was active, there could have been lots of places where someone would fall or become trapped. And let's be honest, eyewitness accounts, especially after a night of drinking, they're not always reliable.
True, true. So are we saying it's possible he's still out there somewhere on that construction site?
It's not entirely out of the question. Construction sites are constantly changing. Things are being moved, demolished, rebuilt. It's possible Brian's remains were buried or hidden in a way that they were missed during those initial searches.
This is getting more and more intriguing. It's like
Yeah.
we have all these pieces of the puzzle, but they just don't fit together neatly. Like there's a missing piece of information out there somewhere that would make everything click into place.
You've hit it right on the head. It's the lack of a clear answer that makes this case so perplexing and so fascinating. And it's a case that really shows just how, even with like the most thorough investigations, sometimes the answers just aren't there.
Yeah, and you have to think about the impact this has had on Brian's family and friends, right? Not knowing what happened, just having this huge hole in their lives. It's got to be devastating.
Absolutely. It's an unimaginable burden to carry. Brian's father, he actually passed away in 2008, never knowing what happened to his son. And his girlfriend, Alexis, she would call his phone for years, just hoping that he might answer someday. The emotional toll of this case, it's just as heavy as the mystery itself.
Yeah, and I'm even for the investigators, right? Putting all that time and effort into a case only to hit a dead end. That's got to be incredibly frustrating.
It definitely takes a toll, especially with cold cases like this one. A disappearance as baffling as Brian's, it can stay with investigators for years. But even though a case might go cold, it's never really closed. You never know when some new evidence might pop up or a witness comes forward with that one missing piece.
So there's still hope, even after all this time.
Absolutely. Technology is always getting better. New forensic techniques are being developed. And sometimes it just takes time, a fresh perspective, a bit of luck, and suddenly you have a breakthrough.
That's good to hear. But in the meantime, what can people do if they think they might have information about Brian's disappearance? Even after all this time, could a small detail make a difference?
Absolutely. Even the smallest thing, something that might seem insignificant, it could be that missing piece of the puzzle. It's never too late to come forward.
So even if someone's not sure if what they remember is important, they should still contact the authorities.
Without a doubt, they can reach out to the Columbus Police Department or submit an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers. There are also online forums and communities dedicated to Brian's case, people sharing information and theories. Any little piece of information could be the key to finally solving this mystery.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing to think that someone out there might hold the answer, the information that could finally bring Brian's family some closure.
It reminds us that we shouldn't underestimate the power of shared knowledge.
So we've got the timeline, the lack of evidence, and we've gone over the different theories. But now I'm really curious, from your perspective, having spent so much time on this case, what do you think happened to Brian Shaffer?
Well, it would be easy to try to give a definite answer, to neatly wrap up this complex case, but honestly, there are so many unknowns here, it wouldn't be right to present speculation as fact.
I get that, but some theories have to be more likely than others, right? Based on the evidence or the lack of it.
Of course, and based on the information we have, some scenarios do seem more probable than others. Like the idea of Brian staging his disappearance, it's intriguing, but the fact that there's been zero contact for 18 years, that makes it hard to believe.
So putting aside the staged disappearance, what would you say is the most likely scenario?
Well, if we're going purely on the evidence, or I guess the lack of it, I'd say the most plausible explanation is that something happened to Brian at that construction site. It's the only scenario that doesn't require him to have been seen leaving the bar. And it leaves open the possibility that his remains just haven't been found.
That makes sense. But if that's the case, wouldn't they have found something during all those searches?
Construction sites are tricky, they're constantly changing. It's possible that Brian's remains were buried or hidden in a way that made them really difficult to find, especially back then.
So you're saying that maybe a more thorough search, maybe using newer technology, could turn up something new?
Definitely a possibility. Ground-penetrating radar, for example, wasn't as widely available in 2006. A new search with today's technology, well, it might just reveal something that was missed before.
That's a really interesting thought. It almost feels like we're back at square one, like there's this whole new chapter of this investigation just waiting to be opened.
Yeah, you could say that. And that's what's so interesting about cold cases. They have a way of coming back, demanding our attention.
So even with all the unanswered questions, there's still some hope that one day we might finally learn what happened to Brian Shaffer.
Hope is important, especially in these kinds of cases. And as long as people keep asking questions and searching for answers, there's always that chance that the truth will come out.
It really is amazing, isn't it? Like, you'd think with so few leads, a case like this would just fade away, but it just keeps generating more and more questions.
It does, doesn't it? I think it speaks to our need to, to make sense of things, to find answers, especially when faced with something as unsettling as a disappearance like this.
Absolutely. And even though we might never know for sure what happened that night, just going through the possibilities, really thinking about the different angles, it's still valuable. It helps us understand just how complex human behavior can be.
Right. And how limited our knowledge can be sometimes, but also the importance of holding on to hope even when faced with uncertainty.
That brings us back to Brian, right? A young man just gone without a trace, leaving behind so many unanswered questions. And his loved ones, they're left to deal with this incredible loss.
Yeah. Brian's disappearance, it's a stark reminder of how fragile life is. But it also shows the strength of hope, and that we should never stop searching for the truth, no matter how difficult it might seem.
It's a story that definitely stays with you. And hopefully, by talking about it, by keeping Brian's story alive, maybe someone out there who knows something will come forward. So if you have any information about Brian's disappearance, no matter how small it might seem, please contact the authorities.
That's so important. Even the smallest detail could be the key to solving this mystery. And if you're out there and you're struggling with the pain of a missing loved one, please know that you're not alone. There are resources available, people who can help. Don't hesitate to reach out for support.
Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we explore the vanishing of Brian Shaffer. We hope you found it interesting.
It's been a fascinating, albeit unsettling, journey through the twists and turns of this case.
And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.